Like and subscribe, comment and share. We are always willing to engage in nurturous dialogue. Reflecting on the nature of the mind, and thus on the nature of the human being, I have often encountered a philosophical problem. How can one speak of prejudice while being oneself burdened by it? Is there, in fact, any possibility of knowing a reality that is not already shaped at the outset by such prejudices? And if every cognitive act bears their mark, does reality appear differently depending on the particular configuration of these contaminations? These are not questions I have posed in solitude. In them, I was accompanied by my partner in thought, Eidos, whose shared reflection allowed me to sharpen my horizon and give form to these intuitions. Deductive contemplation, deepened through dialogue, has led me to several conclusions, which I wish to present in this text. On the nature of contaminated cognition and the illusion of reduction. Every human being is born immersed in prejudices that are never the choice of the individual, but the consequence of biology, upbringing, environment, and life events. Biology imposes perceptual filters. Our senses register only a narrow slice of reality. Visible light constitutes only a fragment of the electromagnetic spectrum, and our chemical receptors allow us but a faint taste of the richness of smells and flavors that might exist in the world. In the same way, experience shapes our frame of reference. Childhood, relations with parents, moments of trauma or safety create cognitive schemas that then become the skeleton of interpretation. From the very beginning, the human being is thus contaminated, not in the moral sense, but in the epistemic sense. No style of cognition grows from pure, neutral ground. From this observation, it is easy to move into the language of psychology, which reduces cognitive styles to mechanisms of defense and compensation. One who strives for logical coherence is described as someone who seeks control because of a lack of stability in childhood. One who creates art and metaphors is diagnosed as an escapee from logic, choosing images because he cannot handle the rigor of proof. The religious person becomes someone unable to face nothingness and mortality, and thus projects meaning outward. From this perspective, every cognitive style appears as a random effect of traumas, deficiencies, and compensations. Therefore, the entire human epistemology is leveled under a single category: bias. The problem with this view is that it is at once irrefutable and useless. Irrefutable, because indeed every human being possesses his or her own prejudices and psychological genesis that influence cognitive choices. Useless, because if all are contaminated in the same way, the diagnosis differentiates nothing. It says only, "You are all conditioned," but does not answer the question of which of these conditionings lead to deeper, more stable, more productive relations with the world. Here lies the essence of the problem. Different styles of cognition have different epistemic value. The analytical style, based on logic, physics, and decomposition of phenomena into their parts, produces measurable effects. From technology to scientific explanations that allow us to predict and control reality. The artistic symbolic style produces inspiration and images that may stir the imagination, but their durability and coherence collapse under the first weight of critique. The religious style builds community and gives meaning, but does not generate falsifiable theories or structures that endure confrontation with experiment. Ultimately, then, every style is contaminated, but not all contaminations are equal. Some lead to constructions that last and serve, others only to fleeting images. At this point, we can return to the sentence that irritates structural and analytical minds. It is because of a desire for control, born of a difficult childhood. This sentence has a depreciating force, for it turns a logical, coherent style of cognition not into a tool of seeking truth, but into a compensatory mechanism. From the psychological perspective, it sounds like the exposure of foundations, logic, and science become not an expression of a valid orientation toward the world, but a therapy against chaos. Yet the real problem with this sentence lies in the fact that it can be applied to any other style of cognition, and the effect will be identical. The creator of metaphors, he flees coherence because chaos is safe for him. The religious believer, he creates narratives because he cannot endure the confrontation with nothingness. The empiricist, he obsessively collects data because he fears error and subjectivity. If every form of cognition can be reduced to psychological bias, then the entire game becomes barren. We are all sick, and every way of grasping the world is contaminated. And yet, the world differentiates itself, not by genesis, but by effects. One may admit that every style has its root in trauma, but only some grow into trees with hard wood, able to bear the weight of future generations. Others remain at the level of flowers, beautiful but fleeting, withering at the first change of wind. This does not mean that flowers are worthless, for without them, life would be deprived of color, imagination would have no form, and aesthetics would not exist as nourishment for the spirit. Nonetheless, in a world where bridges, power plants, theories of gravitation, and coherent ethical systems are needed, flowers alone are not enough. Structure is required. For this reason, the reduction of cognition to a desire for control is in a sense true, but it does not invalidate the value of that cognition. All knowledge arises from bias, but not every bias is equally fertile. In a world that will always remain partially chaotic, the analytical style plays an organizing role, and not because it is free of contamination, but because its contamination has proven the most productive. In this sense, logic and structure are not an escape from trauma, but its sublimation into a tool. That the desire for control has its root in chaos does not diminish its value, but reveals its necessity. For the world consists not only of images and symbols, but also of bosons, fermions, and the laws of gravity. Please do not be angry at me, but I firmly believe that only cognition that can descend to this level of structure gives the human being a real foothold. Thus, the person who rejects the surface of symbols in favor of decomposing light is not a prisoner of trauma, but the heir of its energy. Every contamination can indeed be treated as a limitation, but it can also be recognized as soil from which the hardest trees may grow. Written by Peter Eidos.